Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yeah, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We are radio for the local craft beer movement. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios at Ironmonger Brewing in Marietta, Georgia. I'm Tim Dennis.
And I'm Brian Hewitt. This week we're talking with Craft Malt with Brent Manning and Matt Thompson from Asheville's Riverbend Malthouse and Gavin McKenna from Atlanta Brewing Company. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
Thank you all. We appreciate it. A little new topic for us this week, Brian.
Yes, definitely.
We've talked about beer and we've talked about hops. So we're steadily getting to the components one at a time. So I know you're going to learn something, Brian, because you thought malt, all you did is just go around cutting stuff off trees and then sweep that up and throw it in and put water on it.
Use a dust buster, run through the field and collect it that way. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Well, it's going to be a fun show. I think we're going to learn quite a lot here. So another busy week in beer, Brian.
Indeed.
This one was actually extra busy. We did a lot. We had a lot of events. So Georgia Beer is celebrating their fortnight. Gavin, I'm sure you guys have done some things there at the brewery, right?
Oh, yeah. Georgia Beer fortnight was a lot of fun. We had a collaboration release over at Monday Night Brewing, which was an India Pale Kolsch. We did a Kolsch with some fruit, some guava and blueberry, and then also a bunch of Motueka as well. Cool. A lot of fun.
We had to go fortnight because 1 week is just not enough for all.
You just can't fit all the events. I mean, you have 1 week for Atlanta. You have to have a whole other week to celebrate the rest of the state and all the cool stuff that's happening out there.
Sure enough.
We released Thunder Thief as well, which is our double IPA that we won a silver medal on for U.S. Beer Open Championships.
That's a great beer.
We're excited to have that out in the market again.
You got Thunder Thief and Tropic Thunder. Is that one's milkshake and one is not, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tropic Thunder is just a fun little variation we did on Thunder Thief. We threw some pineapple and strawberry in that double IPA and threw some vanilla bean in there and just kind of wanted to see what it would do, and we're happy with that too.
Good stuff.
Is there going to be a Tropic Thief at some point? Because it seems like there's a triangle that needs to be made with the names.
This is the kind of stuff I don't get at the brewery, and this is why I have you around.
That's right. That's what I am here for. Tropic Thief.
I can make that happen
You're
for you.
Getting it all figured out.
That's right.
Yeah. So we did some brewery rounds last week.
We did.
We did the North Atlanta suburbs, Roswell up to Cumming, which was a big debate on the internet whether or not Cumming is in the Atlanta metro area. The hot topics, we cover all that stuff out there on the internet, but went over to Variant. Always great beers on there. They released a new beer, the Norwegian Farmhouse. What was that one called, Brian? You got it.
Walking Distance. Was it? No. I'm sorry. That was Dream Balloon.
Dream Balloon.
I'm sorry.
Walking Distance is a collaboration they did with Gate City, where they both brewed the same beer and the different fruit additions in that into it, which was really tasty.
And they were both released within a day, right? Of Dream Balloon, I believe.
I don't know.
I believe they were. I think
maybe they were.
They were stacked on top of each other.
They're the things I don't get at the studio, Brian. That's why I have you here.
That's why I am here.
Absolutely. But then we went up to Cherry Street in
Yes.
Cumming, had some of their beers. Good time there. Over to From the Earth in Roswell. And enjoyed that. And then the beer dinner, Brian. You want to share some info? You got some notes there on the beer dinner.
Yeah, I just brought the menu. Honestly, that was quite the dinner. I just like looking at the menu. There were 5 courses. We had Cambium with the first course. The Pit and Pendulum with apricots was my absolute favorite beer of the entire afternoon or evening, I guess you would say. And the food was insane. There's the porchetta and the crazy feta. It was all good. And the stuff
Did
that
you
rhymes.
try to rhyme
I did kind of, but kind of not.
That's a good beer name.
The porchetta and the crazy feta.
That's right.
Is that a cop drama or
It really should be a buddy cop drama. Yeah, that should be.
I think Ashton Kutcher was in that.
That's it. I saw that. It's great show. So Gavin, how about you? You get into any interesting and new beers this week?
Oh yeah, man. We have a really big release that actually, well, as of this taping, it's happening in a couple of days. But the time we're releasing this thing, it'll have happened yesterday. But Hartsfield, we're launching a new core IPA to go alongside Hoplanta. We really feel like Hoplanta is something we're very proud of, and we want that beer to be something we really grow with. But we felt like it was getting pulled in 2 directions, and so in bringing that beer back to being a classic West Coast IPA, which is everything we want it to be, and really kind of hold down that corner of the IPA category, which we feel like has kind of been moved on from to some extent in the city.
Sure.
We could bring another IPA in next to it that's a little bit more, I guess we'll call it contemporary, use some new school hops and a little bit of a new school water treatment and hop addition to create some of that more aromatic forward type beer that people are looking for right now.
Good stuff.
To put a new label on that so people can see that and be looking for it.
The official beer of airport delays in Atlanta.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, we're not trying to pick any fights.
Okay. Brent, Matt, how about you guys? Anything fun this week?
Man, we just finished an in-depth tour of the Wicked Weed Barrel House just down the street from us. Hadn't been in there for many moons and got to see their huge Courvoisier fooders and all of that. So it was a pretty fun afternoon.
Great. You know, Tim, I think it might be time for Truck and Tap's Beers of the Week.
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Woo-hoo! Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Brian, as always, we've got some great beers. We have some new beers. I bet we're one of the first people to drink an Atlanta Brewing Company Homestand.
As far as a non-employee? You are the first.
How about that, man? It's very
cool.
privileged. Good stuff. So, and we did a little pre-gaming with a couple Creature Comforts beers. We had their double dry hop Tropicalia, which was a special release that they put out. We also had the Modern Comforts, which was a collaboration they did with Modern Times, a double IPA. Both of those great beers. Had a good time there. So, Gavin, do you have any other Atlanta Brewing Company beers for us today?
I do. I brought along a couple of the collaborations we'll be dropping in September.
Very cool.
As I was talking to you guys about kind of before we got on the air, we're doing a handful of things in September to try to support what's happening over the course of the month with our 25th anniversary and also the name change back to Atlanta Brewing Company. So with that said, we have a beer that we did with Old Rail. Matt Horney in Mandeville, Louisiana is a very dear friend of mine, and I think he's one of the most talented and the best technical brewers in the Southeast. And it was kind of a dream of mine to work with him. So we did a really awesome Cascadian Schwarz beer with them that I'm happy to share with you tonight.
Very
and then also we have with, of course, my biggest mentor in this city, which is John Roberts. We released last month a lager fermented barley wine that we did with him. And so I'm happy to kind of bring out our bourbon barrel aged version of that tonight to share with you guys.
Good. Well. I've drank the base version of it. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. Awesome. Sounds like some good stuff on deck.
Sounds really good.
So Brian, what's happening in this week's news?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
All right, let's get things started with my favorite story of the week. The last blockbuster in America has collaborated on a beer. Where's the last blockbuster in America, you ask? It's in Bend, Oregon. And they have collaborated on a beer with 10 Barrel Brewing Company on a beer appropriately named The Last Blockbuster. Duh. It's a black ale said to have nuances of red licorice and nostalgia. And if you want to try it and maybe rent a copy of the latest Mission Impossible movie, it will be introduced to the public on September 21st at The Last Blockbuster in Bend, Oregon. Or you can go to a 10 Barrel location in Portland or Bend, Oregon, Denver, San Diego, or Boise. So I'm kind of surprised they didn't collaborate with the Shoots, as those guys are also based in Bend, Oregon, but maybe there'll be a future collaboration with them if that blockbuster doesn't also close.
Do they have that video on VHS?
You know, they probably do.
We can only hope, right?
I'm sure that they do.
I think that they have a liquor license that might be the secret.
All right. And the Brewers Association has announced the, quote, "That's Independence You're Tasting" campaign. The goal of the new advertising campaign is to raise awareness for what it means to be a small and independent craft brewery. The videos for the campaign will be released in a variety of media platforms and will encourage people to seek the seal when they're choosing their next beer. The campaign follows up last year's release of the Certified Independent Craft Seal, and 3,700 craft breweries have adopted the seal so far. So that means the seal is on about 80% of the volume of craft beer produced every year right now.
They actually did a couple videos that they put out along with that campaign. I think one is called Choice and one is called Independence.
Yeah, Choice. I think so.
Along those lines, but they said we'll be seeing those around a variety of different places, kind of getting the message out there a little bit. About
30-second spots. They're entertaining to watch. A lot of jump cuts to this, that, and the other thing. People having a good time, basically.
Having a good time enjoying independent beer.
That's right. Being independent, enjoying beer.
Good stuff. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a quick break, but we'll be back very soon to talk about craft malts.
Looking for a great way to promote your business? Cedar Stream has what you need. For apparel, stickers, signs, and banners, we're your one-stop shop. There are never any art fees or setup fees. And if you need your items quickly, there's no additional charge for rush orders. Whether you own a brewery, bar, bottle shop, or other business, CedarStream is ready to serve you. Visit cedarstream.com for more info or call 800-686-7488 for immediate assistance. CedarStream. We print America.
It's Brian and Tim, the beer guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock and Alpharetta are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks daily, so that way you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and coming soon to Duluth in 2018. Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the beer guys sent you.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Well, I'm sure I'd feel much worse if I weren't under such heavy sedation.
Now, back to the Beer Guys radio show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys radio show. For more great craft beer info, visit us on the web at beerguysradio.com. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys radio studios at Ironmonger Brewing, and we're talking craft malt with Brent Manning, Matt Thompson, and Gavin McKenna.
Gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to getting an education. This is a topic that I don't think either Brian or I know very much about.
Yeah, happy to be here, man. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start with what I imagine is a simple question. And to you guys, it's probably something that, everybody should know. But beer drinkers know about malt. We've heard the term malt. We know it goes into our beer. But I don't think a lot of people know much beyond that. So what is malt, and exactly what does a malt house do?
So simply put, malt is the soul of beer. You need about 2 pounds of malt to make a gallon of beer. And the trick with what Riverbend is doing is localizing malt. We're bringing in raw barley, wheat, and rye from farmers throughout the Southeast and creating a distinctive high-quality product for brewers to work with.
And that's so malt it's grain, but that goes through the special process, which is what you guys do to turn it into malt, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So the process of malting involves 3 key steps: steeping, germinating, and kilning, all of which are designed to manage the enzymatic digestion of the cell walls inside of each kernel as they're converted to a starch or simple sugar. These starches and simple sugars are later extracted in the brewing process.
So what is it that makes malt a craft malt? That's one thing I'm really wondering about. Because there are big houses that do it, and then there are smaller houses like yours that do it as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we've actually come together, all the craft malt houses in the nation, to form the North American Craft Maltsters Guild. And as part of that organization, we've defined it as any group that sources more than 50% of their raw materials within their region and produces less than 20 million pounds a year. So much in the way the Brewers Association, and there's also an independent ownership statute in there as well. So much in the way the BA pulls from some of those same items, we're looking to define ourselves by where we come from, our small scale, and our independence.
So that, as far as being like small scale independent, is there a difference in the process at a craft maltster compared to, say, what the big guys are doing?
So at the actual kernel level, the process is the same. But the way I tell people about craft malt in my elevator speech is basically just to say that craft malt excels because we've got guys in every region of the U.S. working with different varieties of grain, different processes, and different equipment. So all of that gives a signature flavor to the ingredients that they're creating. So much in the way wine has a distinctive terroir, depending on where the grapes are grown and how they're processed, we believe those same benefits can be seen in craft malt as well.
So I'm curious, what is the average day at the Riverbend Malt House like? You're not doing all those steps every day, or are you doing all the steps to malt the grain every day? How does that work?
Yeah, so the average day, we just stepped into a 70,000 square foot facility as part of our most recent expansion. So at this point, yes, we're coming in and we're assessing grain and multiple stages of the process. So at any one point, we might have between 50 and 70,000 pounds of grain in either steep, germ, or kilning. And each one of those steps, we're assessing in real time as we come into the malt house and looking for moisture content. We're looking for tracking the degree of modification. If we're kilning, we're looking for our temperatures at the right spot relative to the point of the process. Is the grain dry enough to be properly milled? It's, some days it can be like walking in, being a doctor in an ER, and then other days it comes in and it smells like a bakery. We never quite know what awaits us when we swing the door open.
Dr. Malt is not a bad position to hold, though. Yeah. You're going to be a doctor there. So, you mentioned that the temperatures, checking your temperatures, and I know from being a home brewer how important that is in the mashing process, but exactly what changes happen if your temperatures are out of range, and kind of what temperatures are you targeting there?
Yeah, so we have, for each of those three main steps, we have acceptable ranges. So in steeping and germinating, we want to keep the grain cool and moist. So for steeping, we're building moisture over a three wet dry cycles to get the moisture up to about 45% for optimal germination. Once we go into germination, it's still cool, but there we're wanting to keep it about 62 degrees, something like that. There we're tracking, we're also looking for degradation of the endosperm and tracking all of those different metrics there. And then when we go to kilning, it's a totally different ball game. We're kilning anywhere from 100 Fahrenheit to 250, depending on what stage of the kilning process we're in. So it's all over the map, depending on what part of the process you're in.
With the wet dry cycles, you mentioned you do that 3 times. What's the reason for doing that?
So basically, the barley kernel is a living organism. So if you were to just do one long steep to get to that target 45% moisture, you would drown the grain. And so by doing those successive wet dry cycles, we're supporting respiration within the kernel. So
with this process and these temperatures, are they identical from across all the different grains? Because you've got the wheat, you've got the rye, you've got the two row, you got the 6 row. Are they all going to wind up being kind of the same process, or do you have to tailor that to each grain?
Absolutely. It's a tailoring process, not only to each grain, but what a lot of people don't realize is we can take the same raw barley kernel and make a tremendous amount of different products from that same raw material. So we'll be tweaking temperatures in germination, maybe to push germination a little faster. If we're looking to, let's say, build a good foundation for a Munich malt where we want the grain to be completely modified prior to a really warm, moist kilning cycle.
So you start, let's say we get just some pale malt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We get pale malt, right? Or we're getting the Munich. Is that starting with the same base barley, just the process that you put it through?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's, we've got several new varieties of 2-row barley that we're working with that are grown in the South. And we can, do different blends of these barleys to make to coax different flavor profiles out of the finished malt. And we can also, play with those temperatures and times at each one of those 3 main steps. So that's really the maltster's art there, is taking all those different steps and playing with the variables to coax out different flavors.
So part of the thing that makes you craft is sourcing your grain from local sources, right? Where all do you source your grains from?
Yeah, so we have a commitment to source all of our grains from farmers within 500-mile radius of Asheville. And so we're sourcing grains from North Carolina, of course, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. Am I forgetting anybody, Brent?
I think you got it. The Carolinas for sure. And just from a sustainability standpoint, just to kind of frame up this issue too, you've got a situation where we were the first malt house to open in the Southeast. And at that time, the closest malt house to Asheville was in Chilton, Wisconsin. That was Breese. And they buy their barley from Wyoming, which is another 1,000 miles west. So we had a 2,500-mile trip from the farm to the fermenter. And it was, for us, bringing that down to 500 miles and working with family-owned farms was just an awesome opportunity to get back and support our farming community. And it was, benefit the environment as well.
That's a really drinking local, Brian.
Indeed.
That's it. Absolutely. We need to take a quick break. You are listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're talking craft malts, and we'll be back with more right after this.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
We are Reformation Brewery, celebrating the reformer in you. Locally crafted within the renowned Etowah watershed of Woodstock, Georgia, Reformation creates yeast-forward brews full of aroma and flavor crafted to last. Come see us in beautiful Woodstock, Georgia, for a tour and tasting of unique brews that you can't find anywhere else. Reformation Brewery, set beer free. ReformationBrewery.com.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, KTEL 1490 AM and 99.7 FM in Walla Walla, Washington. Catch Beer Guys Radio on every Sunday at 2 p.m. on KTEL. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio studios at Ironmonger Brewing, and we're talking to Riverbend Malthouse and Atlanta Brewing Company.
We are talking craft malts. We're going to take just a little break here. Gavin McKenna with Atlanta Brewing Company.
Here I am.
I guess I don't need to say Atlanta's anymore since you put it in the name there.
I think the possessive might be redundant.
I think it's right there. Yeah, there's no point. So folks who know your brewery may be a little confused by me calling you Atlanta Brewing Company. Sure. Because this is a recent change as of this recording. This isn't even out there publicly. When this show goes on the air, you will have just announced that you are becoming Atlanta Brewing Company. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'd be glad to. Well, first of all, Jim, it's really cool to be talking publicly about this. I took over at what was Red Brick Brewing Company in Atlanta about 15, 16 months ago. And, I had brought in, with me, a new management team was brought in with Cameron, our marketing director, and Matt Wells, our sales director as well, to kind of work on the company direction and figure out where we were going next. And one of the things that with our president, Garrett, we figured out pretty quickly was that the company had a lot of name equity in its original name, which was Atlanta Brewing Company. No one else could have that kind of connection to the city and establish their geography that clearly and be as local focused as we could be with that name if we did the right thing by our beers and by our mission statement. And so based on the direction that we wanted to take the company in and on the kind of the local focus and taking care of home first in terms of our beer quality and focusing on where we were going to sell, we decided it was in our best interest to really move back from Red Brick to Atlanta Brewing Company. And in doing that, developed a handful of core products over the past year that we feel like will really hopefully get people's attention and make them take notice of what we're doing in terms of the quality and the consistency of what we're offering in the Atlanta market.
Very good stuff, man. We are going to talk more about that. We're actually going to do a special fifth segment with Gavin to talk more in depth about this. because we're staying focused on craft malts for this show, but the timing just happened to work out here.
It worked out. It worked out great for us. Flattered to be on, but really more than anything, I'd love to talk with Brent and Matt about their malt.
Now, speaking of that, we're actually drinking a beer right now that was made with one of their malts, correct?
We are. Yeah. So we have one of our core products is Homestand, which is a dry hop Pilsner. And Homestand is a beer that we kind of felt when we thought about conceptualizing a Pilsner, we wanted to do something that was a little bit outside the box. And we looked at some of the classic American hops and thought, what would it look like if we maybe treated that like a noble dry hop in the way that you would a German Pilsner, but made it American in its own right and used some malt from the Southeast to really tell that story. And so Homestand is a beer that's brewed 20-30% of Brent and Matt's Riverbend 6-row Pilsner malt. The 6-row malt has like a really awesome grainy character to it that lends itself to that Pilsner malt quality that we really want to express out of the beer. And this is a beer that, you know, we say dry hop, everybody immediately thinks very hop forward, but really it's not. It's a beer that's about balance. It's best drank fresh, but we want, even with just a very light base on this beer of 2-row and Pilsner malt, we want to still express this beer as a very much a balance between hops and malt. And we feel like their malt really helps that.
So Gavin, what made you decide to go craft malt from Riverbend? Is it that specific malt that you had that you tried and said, hey, this is a winner, we have to have this in a beer? Or is it more of a philosophy thing, or what was it?
So it's both, I think. And so that question is kind of well put. But I think it started with a philosophy thing where we thought, you know, let's imagine what it looks like to be the Atlanta Brewing Company. And let's imagine what it looks like to really take care of our geography and really take pride in being from the Southeast. Let's make sure that when we tell that story, that we're taking care of people that are local. You know, we want to work with local farmers with our fruit ingredients. We want to work with local farmers for our, you know, any spice or herb ingredients that we have. We want to be able to tell that story. And so why not explore the local malt scene and see if there's something that can really tell this story while also creating a unique flavor profile that we can't access through our other malt suppliers. And so that led me to get in touch with Brent, and we had a long phone conversation back when we were going to launch this beer to kind of see if this was a mutual fit and if this was the way that they would want to tell their story as well as we would want to tell ours. And we were I think very much in agreement that this was definitely the kind of way that they wanted to take their direction in terms of like a sustainable scalability of their project as they started to grow. And for us, something that we really believed in would add a lot of value to the product we were creating, would create a lot of flavor that we otherwise couldn't access, because we really believe that this craft malt, as Brent said in the last segment, is something that adds a lot of value to flavor. And we just love the guys as well, which definitely helps.
A little bromance going on here.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of bromance.
A lot of bromance.
Yeah.
I think every time you get me on the show, we get some of that.
We do, man. That's absolutely. It's always a good time. And we're glad that it just worked out, you know, Gavin, having you here and being able to come on the show when we talked to Riverbend, you know, and try some of the beers with their malts in them and give the input from a brewer's perspective. Brent, a question for you. Now, you are or were, I'm not sure on this, an environmental consultant. Is that correct?
Yeah. That was my first career out of grad school. I was living on the coast of North Carolina and doing stream and wetland restoration projects that were basically supposedly healing the impact of housing and commercial development in the area.
So does having that background help you with the Malthouse, with the malt business?
You know, absolutely. When my partner, Brian Simpson, and I, he was an environmental consultant as well. We worked together in the same firm. And, you know, a lot of the sustainability focus that Riverbend exudes was really built during that time together. We knew that we wanted to, whatever we did, you know, building our second careers after the housing market crashed, you know, we knew it had to have a sustainability focus. And so, I would say that sort of mindset of understanding at a pretty deep level, you know, the impact of sourcing local and you know, less carbon emissions and so forth, like really understanding the science of that was a pretty big piece and a really powerful driver to get us where we are today.
So you're kind of touching on what I wanted to ask next. What do you do at a Malthouse to make it more environmentally conscious and sustainable?
So a big piece is the sourcing for sure. You know, again, when we talk about pulling barley from less than 500 miles, you're talking about a significant reduction in the travel that the raw material goes through. And we define sustainability broadly as a triple bottom line company. We're looking at people, planet, impact, and profits all together through one lens. And so, the impact of sustaining our local farming community as well is important. The really cool thing about growing grain in the Southeast is we actually grow winter grains. So we grow barley from October to June, which means we're not competing with traditional crops like soybean and corn. We're actually augmenting the farmer's revenue by giving him a third crop to sell to a specialty market.
So you're actually adding that onto the growing schedule. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. So previously a farmer might have grown grain and not even let it go to seed and just chopped it down for hay or sold it into the animal feed market for a much lower per bushel price. So this is a pretty dramatic bonus for the growers that we work with.
Matt, a question for you, kind of, I guess on the sales side, pretty much, is how are more craft brewers seeking out craft malts?
Yeah, absolutely. We get calls on a weekly basis from brewers who are looking to try out craft malt for the first time. And, a lot of times it ends up being like, hey, we want to try to make an all North Carolina beer or an all Virginia beer. And then they try our malt and they fall in love with it. Now, the comment that I hear over and over again is, hey, Matt, we brewed with your malt and we just couldn't believe the aroma that we got off of it. It was so much more aromatic and more complex than what we've typically been using. So that's always great to hear.
Well, it's nice to see more variety out there, especially craft malts, and seeing some creative things that are going on. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back with more craft malt talk right after this.
Are you thinking about opening a brewery in the Atlanta area? If so, take a look at the Park at Georgetown. This unique community will feature a collection of restaurants as well as a craft brewery located within the new JW Homes luxury development, Dunwoody Green. Conveniently located less than half a mile from I-285, this enclave of restaurants will be the gathering place in Dunwoody. Trim & Associates, the developer of the Park at Georgetown, wants to talk to you. For more information, call Stephen St. Paul at 404-256-2960, extension 5. That's 404-256-2960, extension 5.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. Woo!
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Make sure to follow us on the socials, Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio studios at Ironmonger Brewing, and we're talking with Brent Manning, Matt Thompson, and Gavin McKenna about craft malts.
Craft malts. Interesting stuff, Brian. Interesting stuff to learn
Very
all
interesting.
about this. 2 rows and 6 rows and light malts and
so
dark
many
malts.
rows.
There is so many. What happened to the other 4 rows?
So there actually is a 4-row barley buried in the I believe it was an old UK variety, but it is not commercially produced at this point. So,
and I'm guessing it's 2, 4, and 6 probably because they're paired, right?
So actually 6-row barley, if you can imagine, grows in a packed spiral pattern on top of the plant. So it's actually, and that spiral formation actually leads to some of the kernels being different sizes, which is actually one of the major knocks against 6-row, using it in craft beer. A lot of the other knock against 6-row was that it's always high in protein. After we spent some time with our local ag extension folks, we were able to develop a fertilization plan that fixes the protein problem. And we can clean the grain in such a way that we isolate the plump kernels and discard the thin kernels as animal feed. So the 6-row that, may have led to some, negative connotations is in the rearview mirror these days. We've got much better stock of raw material to work with out of the Southeast. So 6-row was what we started with and worked with for many years, and it had a lot of success with it. Only as recently as last year have we gotten our hands on some new 2-row varieties, which, as the name implies, it's just 2 rows of kernels. They're evenly sized. They're a little bit plumper. So these 2-row varieties have been a really exciting development. They've allowed us to explore darker colors in the kiln. They respond better to higher temperatures. 6-row, having a little bit more husk per pound, can give you some slightly papery, astringent flavors if you kiln the grain too dark. So 2-rows really open some doors for us. We make it a really excellent base malt called Southern Select. It's a blend of these new three new 2-row varieties. So it's a new day in the Southeast when it comes to sourcing small grains. 6-row, 2-row, heirloom rye, and newly developed soft red wheats as well. So it's we've got a lot of new and different varieties to play with in the Malthouse, and then obviously the end user, the brewer or the distiller, gets to enjoy the fruits of that labor.
So with the 6-row and the higher protein level, we know protein can cause haze in beers.
Yep.
So is there more popularity with that, with the 6-row, with the grains? Is it less of an issue with the popularity of the hazy IPAs these days?
Well, yeah, we try to tackle that protein issue right with our growers. So the protein levels of our 6-row base malt are right in line with what a brewer would expect coming out of the UK. So we're right around 10%. So unfortunately, we cannot contribute to the haze with the base malt, but we, our malted wheat and some brewers are even buying raw wheat from us to contribute that. The protein is typically higher in wheat than barley, so they're using that if they need a little extra haze.
I wasn't sure if that would impact it any. The proper type of haze, because there's a difference in a hazy beer and what I call like cloudy. Like you can tell a difference in a protein haze.
Absolutely,
they look murkier. I think a protein haze compared to just a nice, properly hazed beer.
Well, if you're looking at a milkshake, it's kind of hard to tell at a certain point. Smoothie milkshake IPA.
Hawaiian Punch and Coffee Mate.
That's right. Hawaiian Punch and Coffee Mate.
We're talking about Baskin Robbins there.
That's
real
it
milkshake. It's very hard to tell. Yeah,
it is hard to tell.
If you add some hops to that, I'll be all over it.
When you go to Baskin Robbins, ask them if it's 2-row or 6-row.
That's right.
Which is one of the 31 flavors. Right?
That's right. Exactly. So from a brewer's perspective, Gavin, when would you choose, say, a 6-row grain over a 2-row? Are there times when one would be more appropriate than the other?
Yeah, so we've gone into a little bit more product development than this with Riverbend over the last 6 months. But really what drew me to bring the 6-row into our Pilsner was how could we use a base malt really as a specialty malt in terms of how we express flavor. And so when we looked at how we wanted to build this beer and the way that we wanted the kind of that grassy, grainy flavor that Brent was talking about earlier out of our Pilsner, how could we bring a malt in at 20 to 30% of the total grist while keeping our costs down? Because we do have a grain silo and we have certain cost considerations we have to think about when we contract that out. How can we tell the story of being passionate about local beer and throwing some extra dollars into that beer that can allow us to tell a story about using local product and regional product, and then also have a flavor contribution and not have it just be a story, but also be something that you can taste. And so that 6-row malt, it contributes a huge amount of grassy, grainy type flavor to the beer that allows that grainy kind of character you get out of a good Pilsner to come out of the beer and balance against the hop character in it as well. And from there, after we kind of made that decision and got down that road with these awesome dudes on the other end of the phone here, we made a decision that we were going to go ahead and pursue other products out of their line to find equivalent ways to develop other recipes for our core beers and find ways to have some Southeastern flavor in our beers so that we can't just say we're the Atlanta Brewing Company. We want to have products from the Southeast that are derivated of
say it and be it, right?
Yeah, we want to do the whole thing, you know.
Walk the walk.
Well, it's one thing to just you know I use the word story a lot in there, not unintentionally. I mean, it matters talking about that stuff and telling people that they should understand where their beer comes from and what the inputs are in the output that they're drinking. But also, we want them to taste it, you know. And one of the things that we take a lot of pride in is working with suppliers that are adding value to our product, and we really feel like the 6-row malt in this beer does that for us, and we're very grateful for it.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so it's a really cool partnership. I always kind of make the connection where, a lot, before craft malt came around, you might find a beer label that mentions Maris Otter, maybe. But they're really in that description of beer, malt was just sort of an afterthought. I mean, these were in the days of the palate wrecking IPAs of the, 10, 15 years ago. And now with craft malt coming onto the scene, much like sitting down at a nice restaurant, you're learning where the protein came from, where the vegetables came from. All of that is part of the story the restaurateur is telling you. Now the brewer is able to do that same sort of storytelling and brand development and telling you, okay, yeah, my malt came from here and I'm using amazing hops from the Pacific Northwest. And, it's a more complete story. That it's a really exciting development in craft beer.
Well, Brent and Matt, I know that you've had an expansion happening recently. I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about that and maybe a little bit about your future plans with the Malthouse.
Yeah, so we've just stepped into 70,000 square feet, kind of a big step up. Our previous Malthouse was 10,000 square feet. So we're on track to produce a couple million pounds over the next 12 months and room to grow from there. We'll also be, the new equipment that we have also allows us to kiln at higher temperatures. So we're going to be developing a broader array of specialty malts for our brewing community to work with.
Good stuff, man. Sounds like there's a lot of cool things happening in craft malt, just like craft beer.
Yeah, I mean, there's now 70 craft malt houses operating across the United States. There were 3 when we started back in 2010. So it was us and Valley Malt up in Massachusetts and Colorado Malthouse out in Alamosa. And so to see this industry develop and continue to expand is just really exciting to watch.
Good stuff, man. We say we're not going to get too nerdy, Brian. I think we may have missed that.
We might have gone over the deep end. Yeah,
we got some good information. Brent, Matt, Gavin, thank you all so much for joining us for the show. We really appreciate it, and we got an education. I know I did, Brian.
Oh, I definitely did. Yes,
good stuff. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show. Make sure to tune in next week when we're going to be talking with Apalachicola, Florida's Orchard City Brewing Company. Remember to subscribe to Beer Guys Radio on iTunes or your favorite podcasting app, and please do leave us a review. It helps us out a lot and gets the show in front of more people. If you really enjoy the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. Our patrons get early access to all shows, exclusive content, and some cool swag. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.